The accident happened on a Tuesday. I remember because I was rushing to get to my evening business class, trying to juggle full-time work and part-time studies. One moment I was crossing the street, the next I was waking up in the hospital with both legs shattered and my life forever changed. Miss Sullivan, a nurse's voice penetrated the fog of pain medications. Your parents are here. I turned my head, wincing at the movement, to see my mother and father standing in the doorway. Mom's face was tight with worry, but not for me, for their bank account. Dad wouldn't even look at me, his eyes fixed on the medical charts at the foot of my bed. How much is this going to cost? Those were his first words. Not how are you, Sarah? Or thank God you're alive. Just cold calculations. The doctor explained the extent of my injuries. Multiple fractures in both legs. Months of rehabilitation ahead. Physical therapy. Specialized equipment. The list went on, and with each item, I watched my father's face grow darker. We can't afford this, he said finally, turning to me. The business is already struggling. Your brother's college tuition is due next month. Ah yes, my brother Michael. The golden child. The one destined to take over Sullivan Manufacturing, our family's company. The one whose education couldn't possibly be compromised. But I tried to speak, my throat dry. My insurance. Your basic insurance won't cover most of this, Mom cut in. And we can't put this burden on the family. Not now. I stared at them, unable to believe what I was hearing. I'm your daughter. And Michael is our son, Dad snapped. The future of our company. We can't risk everything we've built. You're 24, Sarah. Old enough to handle this yourself. 2 days later, they stopped answering my calls. A week after that, I received a text from Mom. We've packed your things. Your apartment lease is paid through the month. We're sorry, but you need to figure this out on your own. Just like that, I was on my own. No family, no home, and medical bills piling up faster than I could count them. The only person who stood by me was my Aunt Claire, Mom's younger sister, who'd always been the black sheep of the family for choosing art over business. Move in with me, she said, visiting me in the hospital. I have plenty of space in my apartment above the gallery. I looked at her through tears. I can't ask you to take this on. You're not asking, I'm offering. She squeezed my hand. Besides, I could use help managing the gallery's accounts once you're back on your feet. That business degree of yours shouldn't go to waste. And so began my new life. The rehabilitation was brutal. Every step was agony. Every small victory shadowed by setbacks. But Aunt Claire never wavered. She drove me to physical therapy, helped me adapt to crutches, then a cane, and finally, painstakingly, to walking on my own again. During those long months of recovery, I threw myself into learning everything about the art world. Gallery operations, artist relationships, market trends, I absorbed it all. My business background combined with Claire's artistic expertise proved to be a powerful combination. You have an eye for this, Claire said one evening as I pored over auction catalogs. You see both the art and the opportunity. She was right. Where others saw just beautiful paintings, I saw investment potential. When others focused on famous names, I spotted emerging talents with growing market value. Slowly, I started building connections in the art world, using my business acumen to help Claire's gallery thrive. A year after the accident, I launched our online platform, expanding the gallery's reach beyond our local market. 6 months later, we were handling private collections for some of the city's wealthiest families. The gallery transformed from a modest local venue to a respected name in the art world. Through it all, I heard nothing from my family. Michael graduated with honors, took his place at Sullivan Manufacturing, and got engaged to the daughter of another business family. I learned all this through social media, watching from a distance as life went on without me. Then came the day that changed everything again. I was in my office above the gallery, reviewing potential acquisitions for an upcoming show, when my phone buzzed with an unfamiliar number. Sarah Sullivan. A crisp professional voice asked. This is James Morton from Morton & Associates. I'm calling regarding Sullivan Manufacturing. I sat up straighter. I haven't been involved with Sullivan Manufacturing for years. Nevertheless, this matter concerns you directly. He paused. Are you aware that your grandfather's original company charter included a unique provision? No, I said slowly. I wasn't given access to any company documents. Well, it seems your father wasn't aware either. Until now. Another pause. The charter stipulates that any sale or merger of the company requires unanimous consent from all living direct descendants of the founder. That includes you, Miss Sullivan. I gripped my phone tighter. What exactly are you saying? Sullivan Manufacturing is in negotiations for a $50 million buyout. The deal cannot proceed without your signature. Your father asked me to contact you about signing over your voting rights. I closed my eyes, memories flooding back. The hospital room. The coldness in Dad's voice. The text message from Mom. Years of silence. Miss Sullivan. Are you there? Yes, I said, opening my eyes. Please tell my father I'll need to review all the relevant documents before making any decisions. He can send them to my office at Claire Sullivan Gallery. Hi, of course. Though I believe your father hoped to resolve this quickly. I'm sure he did. I smiled, though the lawyer couldn't see it. But I've learned a lot about contracts and fine print over the past few years. I'll need time to review everything thoroughly. After hanging up, I sat back in my chair, looking out over the gallery below. The space was filled with paintings and sculptures worth millions. Pieces I had helped acquire and sell. I'd built something here, something valuable, without my family's help or approval. My phone buzzed again. This time it was a number I hadn't seen in 5 years. Dad. I let it ring. The next morning, a courier delivered a thick envelope of documents to the gallery. Inside was the merger agreement, along with a letter requesting my prompt attention to this urgent matter and a pre-signed release of voting rights. They even helpfully marked all the places where I needed to sign with little yellow tabs. Aunt Claire watched me spread the papers across my desk. Well, this is quite the twist of fate. Grandfather always was thorough, I said, scanning the original charter. I wonder if Dad ever actually read it completely. Knowing your father, he probably thought he knew everything he needed to know. Claire sighed, just like he thought he knew what was best for everyone else. I spent the next 3 days reviewing every detail of the merger. Sullivan Manufacturing, it turned out, was being sold to Global Tech Industries, a larger competitor. The reason for the urgency became clear. Global Tech's offer had a deadline. If the deal didn't close within 2 weeks, they'd walk away. My father called 6 more times. I let each call go to voicemail. His messages grew increasingly agitated. Sarah, be reasonable. This deal is crucial for the company's future. Your brother has worked hard to make this happen. Don't let personal feelings interfere with business. On the 4th day, my mother appeared at the gallery. We're closed for a private event, our receptionist told her. I'm here to see my daughter, Mom said, loud enough for her voice to carry upstairs. I walked to the railing and looked down at her. She seemed smaller somehow, less intimidating than I remembered. Her designer outfit and perfectly styled hair couldn't hide the worry lines around her eyes. Sarah, she called up, we need to talk. I nodded to the receptionist. It's okay, Lisa. She can come up. Mom's heels clicked on the stairs. She paused in my office doorway, taking in the space, the elegant furniture, the valuable artwork, the view of the gallery below. This is impressive, she said finally. Did you think I was living in poverty? I gestured to a chair. Please sit. She perched on the edge of the seat, clutching her handbag like a shield. Your father sent me. I assumed as much. I sat behind my desk. He's never been good at handling his own mistakes. Sarah, please. This merger is everything we've worked for. The company's future depends on it. The company's future, I repeated. You mean Michael's future? She flinched. That's not fair. Your brother has dedicated himself to the business, and I dedicated myself to recovering from near-fatal injuries. Alone. I kept my voice level. How is Michael, by the way? Still engaged to the venture capitalist's daughter. The wedding is in June, she paused. You could come. I laughed, though there was no humor in it. 5 years of silence, and now I'm suddenly invited to family events. How convenient. We made mistakes, she admitted. But this merger is bigger than our family issues. Global Tech's offer is extremely generous. Yes, I've reviewed the terms. I pulled out the documents. $50 million. Plus executive positions for Dad and Michael in the new company structure. Very generous indeed. Then you understand why. Why you need my signature? I cut her off. Yes, I understand completely. What I don't understand is why I should help the people who abandoned me when I needed them most. Tears welled in her eyes. We thought we were doing the right thing. The business was struggling. Michael's education. Stop. I held up my hand. I don't want to hear about Michael's education again. You chose him over me. That's fine. But now you have to live with the consequences of that choice. What do you want? She asked quietly. Money? A position in the company? I stood up and walked to the window, looking down at the bustling gallery below. You really don't get it, do you? I built something here. Something valuable. Something mine. I don't need your money or your company. Then why won't you sign? I turned back to her. Because for the first time you need me, and I want you to understand exactly how that feels. The next day, my father and Michael showed up together. They didn't bother with the receptionist, charging straight up the stairs to my office. This has gone on long enough, Dad thundered. Sign the papers. I looked up calmly from my computer. Hello, Father. Michael, nice of you to finally visit. Michael stepped forward, every inch the polished executive in his tailored suit. Sarah, you're being childish. This merger is worth $50 million. I know exactly what it's worth. I smiled. I also know Global Tech's deadline is in 9 days, and I know their CEO, Marcus Chen, has a reputation for walking away from deals at the slightest complication. Dad's face reddened. You're threatening to destroy everything we've built. No, I corrected him. I'm exercising my legal right as a descendant of the founder. The same founder whose signature is on my grandfather's charter. The one you apparently never read carefully enough. Name your price, Michael snapped. Everyone has one. I stood up slowly, leaning slightly on my desk. My legs still ached sometimes, a permanent reminder of that Tuesday evening 5 years ago. You want to talk price? I opened my drawer and pulled out a file. Here's my counteroffer. Dad snatched the paper, his eyes scanning quickly. His face went pale. This is insane, he sputtered. 20% of the merger value, a seat on the board of the new company, and a formal acknowledgement of what happened 5 years ago, I added. A public one. Michael grabbed the paper from Dad. $10 million? You must be joking. Do I look like I'm joking? I gestured around my office. I built this gallery into one of the most successful art dealerships in the city. I understand value, leverage, and negotiation. But more importantly, I understand family, or rather what family shouldn't be. We can't possibly, Dad began. You can, and you will. I sat back down. Otherwise, I'll let the Global Tech deadline expire. I wonder how Marcus Chen will react when he learns why the deal failed. A week later, I sat in a Global Tech conference room, watching my father read a prepared statement to the assembled board members and press. 5 years ago, our family made a terrible mistake, he read, his voice tight. We abandoned our daughter Sarah when she needed us most. Today, as we embark on this new chapter for Sullivan Manufacturing, we acknowledge that error and welcome her as an equal partner in our future endeavors. I signed the merger documents immediately after. $10 million was deposited into my account the same day. But the money wasn't what mattered. It was watching my father finally admit his mistake in front of everyone who mattered in his world. That evening, I returned to the gallery. Aunt Claire was waiting with a bottle of champagne. To karma, she said, handing me a glass. To second chances, I corrected her. Some we give others, some we give ourselves. I looked around at the gallery, my gallery. Tomorrow, I'd be attending my first board meeting as one of Global Tech's directors. But this was still my true success story. My phone buzzed. A text from Mom. Can we have dinner sometime? Just us? I stared at the message for a long moment before replying. Not yet. But maybe someday. 5 years ago, they'd thrown me away when I was broken, assuming I'd never amount to anything. Now I was stronger than ever, and they needed my signature to save their legacy. Sometimes karma works in unexpected ways. And sometimes, the best revenge isn't about getting even. It's about rising so far above those who hurt you that they have to crane their necks just to see how far you've come.
The steady beep of hospital monitors had become the soundtrack to my life over the past week. I sat beside my father's bed, watching his chest rise and fall with mechanical precision, wondering if he could even hear me anymore. The doctors said the cancer was winning, that it was just a matter of days now. Still here, Diana. My sister Catherine's voice dripped with artificial concern as she clicked into the room in her designer heels. "You should go home, get some rest. Peter and I can handle everything." I didn't look up from Dad's face. "I'm fine where I am." Catherine sighed dramatically. "You know, if you just taken that management position Peter offered you at Maxwell Industries, you could afford to take time off. Instead of—" She gestured vaguely at my wrinkled clothes. "This." By this, she meant my choice to become a research scientist instead of joining the family business. Maxwell Industries, founded by our grandfather and now run by our older brother Peter, was a technological manufacturing giant. They made everything from smartphones to military components, and both Catherine and Peter had slipped easily into executive roles. I was the family disappointment, more interested in pure research than profit margins. Dad had been the only one who understood, who supported my decision to pursue my doctorate in quantum mechanics instead of an MBA. "Where is Peter, anyway?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. "Board meeting," Catherine replied. "Some of us have actual responsibilities, Diane. We can't just sit around." A weak cough from the bed cut her off. Dad's eyes fluttered open, focusing first on me, then sliding to Catherine. "Kitty," he whispered, using her childhood nickname. "Give us a moment." Catherine's perfectly maintained smile faltered. "But Dad, please." His voice was barely audible. She left, her heels clicking a staccato beat of frustration. "Diana." Dad's hand reached for mine, trembling with effort. "Listen carefully." I leaned closer. "I'm here, Dad." "The old factory, on River Street." Each word seemed to cost him tremendous energy. "My lab, in the basement." "The key." He started coughing again. "Dad, save your strength. We can talk later." "No." His grip tightened suddenly. "No time. Keys in my study, behind Maxwell's portrait. You'll understand. When you see." "See what?" I asked, but his eyes were already closing again. "Trust no one," he whispered. "Not even family." Those were his last words to me. He slipped into a coma that night and was gone by morning. The funeral was exactly what you'd expect for a titan of industry. Peter gave a touching eulogy about carrying on the family legacy. Catherine dabbed at her eyes with a monogrammed handkerchief. Business associates and society friends filled the church, all offering condolences and barely concealed business pitches to the new CEO. I sat in the back row, my mind racing with questions. The old factory on River Street had been Maxwell Industries' first manufacturing facility, abandoned decades ago when operations moved to a modern campus outside the city. What could possibly be there that was so important? "Diana." Peter's voice interrupted my thoughts. He stood over me in his perfect black suit, every inch the corporate leader. "We need to discuss your future with the company." I looked up at my older brother, the golden child, the chosen heir, the one who had spent years trying to force me into the corporate mold. "I have a future," I said, "at the university." He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Come on, sis. Dad's gone now. Time to grow up and join the real world. I have a position opening in R&D management." "No thanks." I stood up, gathering my things. "I need to go clean out Dad's study anyway." Peter's smile vanished. "Actually, Catherine and I will handle that. Family papers, you understand. Sensitive company information." I thought about the key Dad had mentioned. I have just as much right. "You gave up your rights to company business when you chose to play scientist instead of taking responsibility," he snapped. Then, recovering his composure, We'll box up any personal items for you." I watched him walk away, already working the room, accepting condolences with practiced grace. He had no idea that Dad's last words had been meant for me, not him. No idea that whatever was hidden in that old factory could change everything. That night, I waited until a security guard made his usual rounds at the family estate, then slipped in through the garden entrance. A secret path I discovered during childhood games of hide and seek. Dad's study was exactly as he left it, down to the half-empty coffee cup still sitting on his desk. Maxwell's portrait dominated one wall, our grandfather looking sternly down at anyone who dared enter his son's domain. It took me 15 minutes of careful searching to find the hidden catch behind the frame. When I pressed it, a small panel clicked open, revealing a tarnished brass key and a folded piece of paper. The paper contained a series of numbers, coordinates, maybe, or a code. But the key was old, its design unlike anything used in modern buildings. The kind of key that might open a door that hadn't been touched in decades. As I closed the panel and carefully replaced the portrait, I heard voices in the hallway, Peter and Catherine, coming to start going through Dad's things. "Have to find it," Peter was saying. "If she figures out what's in that factory." "She won't," Catherine replied. "Diana's naive. She probably thinks Dad's last words were just fever dreams." I slipped out the way I'd come in, the key burning a hole in my pocket. They knew. Whatever was in that factory, they knew about it, and they were desperate to keep me from finding it. The next morning, I drove to River Street, the old industrial district that had once been the heart of the city's manufacturing boom. The Maxwell Industries factory stood like a ghost among renovated warehouses and trendy loft apartments. 3 stories of red brick and broken windows, surrounded by a chain-link fence bearing "No Trespassing" signs. I parked a block away and watched. Within an hour, I saw 3 different security patrols. Way more than an abandoned building should need. Peter was obviously taking no chances. But Peter had forgotten something crucial about his little sister. Before I was a physicist, I had been an explorer, the kid who found every secret passage in the family mansion, who knew every maintenance tunnel in our private school, who could get anywhere I wasn't supposed to be. And Dad, it seemed, hadn't forgotten. As I studied the factory through binoculars, I noticed something interesting. The security patrols focused on the main entrance and loading docks. But there, almost hidden by overgrown vegetation, was a small door, probably once used by maintenance workers. A door with a very old, very distinctive lock. I waited until night fell, then made my move. The lock was stiff from decades of disuse, but the key turned smoothly. Inside, the air was thick with dust and memories. My phone's flashlight revealed corridors filled with ancient machinery, broken windows letting in sliggers of moonlight. Everything was exactly as you'd expect in an abandoned factory, except for the elevator. Hidden behind a stack of rusted equipment, its doors were clean, its control panel modern. When I pressed the call button, it hummed to life instantly. There was only one button inside, B3, 3 levels below the basement that should have been there. As the elevator descended, I thought about Dad's last words. Trust no one, not even family. The doors opened onto something impossible, a state-of-the-art laboratory that looked like it belonged in a sci-fi movie. Holographic displays filled the air with swirling data. Complex machinery hummed with power. And everywhere, covering every surface, were notes and diagrams in my father's distinctive handwriting. "Oh my God," I whispered, picking up the nearest notebook. "Dad, What were you working on? The answer, written in bold letters across the first page, made my blood run cold. Project Quantum Gate. Phase 3. Successful transmission achieved. My father, it seemed, had solved the impossible. And now I understood why my siblings were so desperate to keep me away. Because I was the only one who could understand what he had built and what it could do to the world. I spent hours in that underground laboratory, my mind struggling to process what I was seeing. The equations covering the walls weren't just theoretical physics. They were practical applications of quantum mechanics that shouldn't have been possible for decades. My father had done what every major tech company and research institution had failed to do. He had created stable quantum transmission, not just data transfer, but actual matter transportation at the quantum level. The applications are limitless, his notes read. Instant transportation of materials, secure quantum communications, even biological matter transfer. But the dangers if misused. The rest of that page was torn out. I searched the lab, but couldn't find it. My phone buzzed. Catherine calling for the 5th time. I ignored it, focusing instead on a series of video files labeled test results. The first few showed failed experiments, quantum fluctuations that dissolved test objects into particles. But the later ones, test 47 successful. My father's voice narrated as a small metal cube disappeared from one chamber and instantly appeared in another. Complete molecular reconstruction achieved. No degradation of original material. The final video was dated just 2 months ago, shortly before his diagnosis. The military applications alone would be worth billions, he said, looking tired but determined. Which is exactly why this can never fall into the wrong hands. Peter thinks quantum tech is just another weapon to sell. He doesn't understand the responsibility that comes with this kind of power. A noise upstairs made me freeze. Footsteps, multiple sets. I quickly copied as many files as I could to my phone, then looked for a way out. There had to be another exit. My father wouldn't have built this place without an escape route. Hidden behind a bank of servers, I found it. A narrow maintenance tunnel with a ladder leading up. Just as I closed the tunnel entrance behind me, the elevator doors opened. She's been here. Peter's voice echoed in the lab. Everything's powered up. Find those notebooks, Catherine snapped. She can't be allowed to understand what this place is. Too late, I whispered, starting my climb up the ladder. The tunnel emerged in an abandoned warehouse 2 blocks from the factory. By the time I made it home, my phone was flooded with messages, not just from my siblings, but from Maxwell Industries' legal department. CEAC and DESIST. The email's subject line blared. Unauthorized access of proprietary company technology. I laughed. They thought corporate lawyers could contain something like this? My doorbell rang just as I was reviewing the copied files. Through the peephole, I saw Catherine, still wearing her funeral clothes. Diana, open up. She sounded frantic. We need to talk about what you saw. I stayed silent, watching. Please, she continued. You don't understand what's at stake. The company, our family's legacy. You mean the weapons contracts? I called through the door. Is that why you and Peter are so desperate to control Dad's research? Silence. Then, how much do you know? Enough to understand why Dad wanted me to find it instead of you. I heard her take a shaky breath. We can make a deal. Name your price. Whatever university position you want. Funding for your research. You still don't get it, I said. This isn't about money. It's about responsibility. Dad knew that. Dad was dying. she shouted, mask finally cracking. He wasn't thinking clearly. Peter has buyers lined up. Legitimate military contracts that could transform Maxwell Industries. Into what? I demanded. A weapons manufacturer. Using quantum technology to create something that could destabilize global security. To create something that could protect our nation. A new voice said. Peter, standing at the end of the hallway. Be reasonable, Diana. This is bigger than your moral qualms. I watched through the peephole as he approached, his expression calm, but his eyes cold. The company's board meets tomorrow, he continued. We're announcing a new military research division. Multi-billion-dollar contracts, all pending successful demonstration of the quantum transmission technology. Don't throw away everything Dad built because of some naive idealism. I thought about the torn page from Dad's notebook about his warnings of misuse. Dad built Maxwell Industries to create things that helped people, not weapons. Dad built this company to make money, Peter corrected. And now you're going to help us do exactly that. Whether you want to or not. The threat in his voice was clear. Think carefully about your next move, Catherine added. You're not the only one who can understand Dad's research. Our tech teams are already reverse engineering the lab's systems. What they didn't know was that while they were talking, I was sending encrypted copies of Dad's files to trusted colleagues around the world. People who would understand the importance of controlling this technology. 1 hour, Peter said. You have 1 hour to agree to help us voluntarily. After that, he left the threat hanging. I waited until their footsteps faded, then grabbed my emergency bag, the one I'd packed after finding the lab, knowing this confrontation was coming. But as I headed for my car, my phone buzzed with an alert from one of the security systems I'd installed in the lab. Someone was accessing the main computer, trying to decrypt Dad's core research files. I had a choice. Run and hope my colleagues could protect the research, or go back to the lab and finish what Dad had started. The answer really wasn't a choice at all. My father had trusted me with this responsibility. Now it was time to prove him right. I turned my car toward Rigger Street, toward the lab where everything had started. Peter and Catherine thought they were playing a corporate game, moving pieces on a financial chessboard. But they had forgotten something crucial. I wasn't just their little sister anymore. I was my father's daughter, a scientist who understood exactly what was at stake. And I was done playing by their rules. The old factory looked different at night. Moonlight caught the broken windows, making them glitter like shards of the future my father had tried to protect. As I approached the maintenance entrance, I noticed something odd. The security patrols were gone. That could only mean one thing. Peter and Catherine were already inside. I didn't use the elevator this time. Instead, I found the emergency stairwell Dad had marked in his notes, hidden behind a false wall. 3 levels down, I could hear voices echoing from the lab. The encryption is stronger than we thought, an unfamiliar voice said. Dr. Hayes says it could take days to crack without the proper key sequence. We don't have days. Peter's voice, tight with frustration. The board meets in 12 hours. Without a working demonstration, the military contracts are void. I peered through a ventilation grate. The lab was filled with people, technicians at computer stations, security guards at the doors, and my sibling standing by the quantum transmission chambers. Where is she? Catherine demanded, pacing in her designer heels. Diana's apartment is empty. Her phone's off. She'll come, Peter said confidently. She won't be able to resist trying to stop us. And when she does, he gestured to the armed guards. They were right about one thing. I couldn't stay away. but they were wrong about why. I pulled out my phone and activated the program I'd spent the last hour writing. Dad's notes had included emergency protocols, ways to protect his work if it was ever compromised. I'd modified one of them for exactly this situation. Warning: the lab's computer system suddenly announced. Core containment protocols initiated. Quantum stabilization failing in 10 minutes. Chaos erupted in the lab. Technicians scrambled to override the warning as emergency lights began flashing. "What's happening?" Catherine screamed over the alarms. "The quantum field is destabilizing," one of the technicians shouted back. "If we don't shut it down properly, the entire system could collapse." "Then shut it down." "We can't. The controls are locked out." I smiled, stepping out of my hiding place. "Actually, you can. But you'll need my help." Every gun in the room swung toward me. Peter's face twisted with rage. "What did you do?" "Activated Dad's failsafe," I said calmly. "In 8 minutes, the quantum field will collapse, taking all his research with it. The only way to stop it is with an encryption key that only I have." "Give it to us," Catherine demanded. "Now." "Or what? You'll shoot me." "Then you'll definitely lose everything." Peter raised his hand, stopping the guards from advancing. "Name your price." "My price is simple. Dad's research stays private. No weapons, no military contracts. Maxwell Industries returns to what it was meant to be, a company that creates things to help people, not destroy them." "You're insane," Peter spat. "Do you have any idea how much money?" 5 minutes to quantum field collapse," the computer announced. Catherine grabbed Peter's arm. "We don't have a choice." I pulled out a flash drive. "This contains a new corporate charter I had drawn up. It places control of all quantum research under an independent ethics board. Sign it, or watch Dad's life work disappear." Peter's face went through a fascinating series of emotions: rage, calculation, desperation. Finally, he nodded. "Give me the damn papers." The next few minutes were a blur of signatures and quantum calculations. With seconds to spare, I entered the stabilization code, bringing the system back under control. "You played us," Catherine said quietly as the emergency lights faded. "No," I corrected. "I protected us from ourselves." The following days were intense. The board meeting became a very different kind of announcement, not about military contracts, but about Maxwell Industries' new direction in ethical quantum research. Peter fought it at first, but the publicity was overwhelmingly positive. Stock prices soared as tech media celebrated the company's commitment to responsible innovation. Within weeks, civilian applications of Dad's discoveries were changing lives. Quantum-based medical scanners, secure communication systems, clean energy solutions. Catherine eventually came around, especially when she saw how our new direction improved her social standing. "Ethical tech is very in right now," she informed me over our first civil lunch in weeks. The lab became my new workspace, not hidden anymore, but open to carefully selected researchers from around the world. Every morning, I passed Dad's old portrait in the lobby, now hanging beside a plaque with his words: "Power without responsibility is the most dangerous force in the universe." 1 year later, I stood in that same lab, watching as the first quantum-powered medical scanner saved a child's life. The technology that could have been a weapon was now a tool for healing. My phone buzzed. Peter calling. We weren't close, probably never would be, but we'd reached a kind of understanding. "The London facility is ready," he said without preamble. "Catherine's handling the PR. but we need you there for the technical setup. I'll be there, I promised, just as soon as I finish something here. After hanging up, I walked to the back of the lab, to a door that only I could open. Inside was Dad's private office, exactly as he left it. On his desk sat a letter I'd found hidden in the lab's original encryption code. "My dearest Diana," it began, "if you're reading this, you've done exactly what I knew you would. You saw beyond profit and power to the real potential of what we've created. Your siblings never understood that our work wasn't about money or success. It was about making the world better, one discovery at a time." I touched the letter gently, feeling closer to him than I had since those final moments in the hospital. "Trust no one," he told me. But what he'd really meant was, trust yourself. The quantum gate hummed quietly in the background, its blue light casting shadows on the wall. The same technology that could have started wars was now saving lives. All because one person chose responsibility over power. My phone buzzed again, another breakthrough at the medical center. I smiled, tucking Dad's letter back into its drawer. There would always be people like Peter and Catherine, seeing only dollar signs and power plays. But there would also always be people who understood what Dad had taught me, that the greatest discoveries aren't the ones that make us rich or powerful, but the ones that make us better. As I headed out to help with the new medical protocol, I passed the factory's old entrance. The no trespassing signs were gone, replaced by Maxwell Industries' new slogan, "Innovation with Integrity." Dad would have liked that. And somewhere, in whatever quantum realm he might be watching from, I knew he was smiling. The reading of my father's will was exactly what I expected. Another reminder of where I stood in the Morrison family hierarchy. My brother Thomas got the house, my sister Elizabeth received the vacation properties, and both of them split the majority shares in Morrison Technologies. I got a watch, a broken one. "Here you go, Alex." Thomas tossed the old Omega across the mahogany conference table. Dad's lucky watch. Though it didn't bring him much luck in the end, did it? I caught it reflexively, feeling the weight of the timepiece in my palm. The glass was cracked, the hands frozen at 3:47. My father had worn it every day until his stroke. After that, Thomas had taken control of both the company and the family. "At least it's appropriate," Elizabeth added with a smirk. A broken watch for the broken Morrison. The family joke, Alex Morrison, the brilliant disappointment. The one who chose research over business, who wanted to create instead of acquire. My father had called me unfocused. Thomas preferred the term waste of potential. Mr. Davidson, the family lawyer, cleared his throat uncomfortably. "If that's all, we should discuss the transition of company leadership." "There's nothing to discuss," Thomas interrupted. "The board has already approved my appointment as CEO. Elizabeth will be CFO. The Morrison legacy is secure." I stood up, sliding the watch into my pocket. "Congratulations. You finally have everything you wanted." "Oh, don't be bitter, little brother." Elizabeth's voice dripped false sympathy. "You can always come work for us. I'm sure we can find something suitable in the mailroom." I left without responding, taking the elevator down 60 floors to the Manhattan streets below. Morrison Technologies occupied the top third of the building, a glass and steel monument to my father's empire, an empire built on something he'd taken to his grave. The secret of Project Echo. 20 years ago, Morrison Technologies had been on the verge of bankruptcy. Then my father had emerged with a revolutionary quantum processing technology that transformed the company overnight. The origin of that technology was known only to him. All documentation, all research, had vanished mysteriously in a lab fire. Now Morrison Technologies was a global leader in quantum computing, and I was the only person who had ever questioned where that technology really came from. In my small apartment across town, a far cry from Thomas's penthouse or Elizabeth's brownstone, I examined the watch more closely. It had been my father's constant companion, even before Project Echo. I'd always wondered why he kept wearing it after it broke. The case back was scratched but intact. Normal watches had serial numbers engraved here, but this one had something different. A series of seemingly random numbers and letters. My 7QP4RT9XV2. I frowned. The pattern looked familiar somehow, like something I'd seen in my own research into quantum encryption. My father had been many things, but he wasn't a quantum physicist. His background was in business, acquisitions. Yet somehow he produced groundbreaking quantum technology that experts still couldn't fully explain. I pulled out my laptop and ran the sequence through various decryption algorithms. Nothing. Then I tried something different, treating it as coordinates using quantum positioning. The screen lit up with a location, an address in Brooklyn in an industrial area I'd never heard of. My phone buzzed. Thomas calling. I ignored it, already grabbing my coat. Whatever this was, I needed to see it before my siblings realized the watch might be more than a cruel joke. The address led me to an abandoned warehouse, the kind of place that shouldn't exist anymore in gentrified Brooklyn, all rusted metal and broken windows. But the lock on the side door was new, and its keypad looked suspiciously familiar. I entered the sequence from the watch. The door clicked open. Inside, past layers of dust and debris, I found another door. This one required fingerprint access. I'd pressed my hand against it, not really expecting anything. Identity confirmed. A computerized voice announced, "Welcome, Alexander Morrison." The door slid open, revealing a hidden laboratory that looked like something from science fiction. Quantum computers lined the walls, their processors humming with energy. Holographic displays filled the air with streams of data. And there, on a central workstation, sat a single envelope with my name on it. My hands shook as I opened it, recognizing my father's handwriting. "Alex, if you're reading this, you've proven what I always knew. You have the mind to solve puzzles others can't even see. You're the only one who ever questioned Project Echo, the only one who saw past the official story. Now it's time you learned the truth about where our technology really came from, and why I had to hide it from everyone, especially your brother and sister. But be careful. Some secrets are worth killing for, and they're already watching. Love, Dad." I looked up at the security camera blinking in the corner. Its red light had just gone dark. I wasn't alone anymore. I had exactly 30 seconds before they arrived. My mind raced, calculating options as I heard footsteps echoing through the warehouse above. The security camera might be dead, but whoever was watching had already seen me. "Primary system breach," the computer announced, initiating data purge. The holographic displays began flickering, data streams dissolving. I grabbed my father's letter and ran to the central computer, fingers flying across the keyboard. If I could just copy the core files before. The workstation's screen flashed. Quantum encryption key required. Of course, nothing was ever simple with my father. I pulled out the watch, studying it frantically. The frozen hands. 3:47. Why had that time seemed familiar? Then it hit me. The quantum physics paper I'd published last year had been submission number 347. I typed in the numbers. The screen unlocked, revealing thousands of files. Download initiated, the computer announced. Estimated time, 2 minutes. The footsteps were getting closer. I pulled out my phone, connecting it to the system. Whatever I could save in the next minute might be the only evidence I'd get. A voice called from above. "Mr. Morrison, security team, please stay where you are." I almost laughed. Right, because heavily armed security teams always show up at abandoned warehouses. My phone buzzed. 30% downloaded. The footsteps had reached the inner door. Biometric lock engaged, the computer announced. Thank God for small favors. The fingerprint scanner would buy me maybe a minute. I used the time to scan the lab, looking for anything else important. Most of the equipment was beyond cutting edge. Quantum processors that shouldn't exist yet, experimental hardware that looked decades ahead of current technology. Alex, a new voice, one I recognized. "Thomas, open this door right now." "Kind of busy," I called back, watching the download tick up to 60%. "This is private property," he shouted. "Corporate secrets. You're committing a crime." Funny, I was about to say the same thing, because what I was seeing in these files was impossible. Project Echo wasn't just advanced technology, it was stolen technology. The original research dated back 20 years to a small startup called Quantum Dynamics, a startup that had mysteriously burned down, taking all its research with it, or so everyone thought. My phone, 85% downloaded. The biometric lock. Warning, override in progress. "Thomas, last chance, Alex, don't make this worse than it has to be." I found what I was looking for in the last folder, a video file dated the day before the Quantum Dynamics fire. My father's face filled the screen, 20 years younger, but wearing the same watch. "The deal is simple," he was saying to someone off camera. "Sign over the patents, or the next accident won't be a warning." A different voice responded, tired, defeated. "You can't just steal someone's life's work." "I already have. The only question is whether you live to start over somewhere else." I felt sick. The quantum technology that built Morrison Technologies, that made us billions, it had all been taken at gunpoint. The phone, download complete. The door, override successful. I had seconds left, but there was one more thing I needed. As the door began to slide open, I grabbed a small black box from the workstation, a quantum encryption key. If I was right, it was the only thing that could decode the files I'd just stolen. "Don't move." Armed men poured into the lab, followed by Thomas. My brother looked furious, but also scared. "Step away from the computer," he ordered, "and give me that phone." I held up my hands, making sure he saw the quantum key. "Interesting security system you have here, Thomas. Almost like you knew this place existed." His face tightened. "I'm protecting company assets." "Company assets?" I gestured at the lab. "This place doesn't exist in any official records, just like Quantum Dynamics didn't exist after Dad had it burned down." "You don't know what you're talking about." "Don't I? The timestamps on these files are pretty clear. Dad stole this technology, then erased all traces of the theft, including the original inventors." Thomas's expression changed, became something colder, more calculating, "and now you have proof, which makes you a problem." The armed men moved closer. Not corporate security after all. These were professionals, the kind you hired when things needed to disappear. "You know," I said conversationally, "I always wondered why Dad gave me that watch. Why he made sure I'd find this place." "He didn't. It was a mistake. A broken watch for the family failure, remember? I smiled. Except Dad didn't make mistakes. Everything was calculated, planned. He knew eventually someone would discover the truth about Project Echo. He chose who that someone would be. And he chose wrong. Thomas nodded to his men. Take him. What happened next would have made a great action movie scene. Unfortunately, I'm a scientist, not a martial artist. I managed one good throw, tossing the quantum key through the closing door of a specimen vault, before they grabbed me. That was stupid, Thomas sighed as his men zip-tied my hands. Now we'll have to do this the hard way. You mean like you did with the real inventors of Project Echo? They made their choice. He grabbed my phone, frowning when he saw the encrypted files. And now you'll make yours. Tell us where you threw the key, or... An alarm cut him off. The specimen vault was glowing, quantum energy swirling around the key I'd thrown inside. Warning, the computer announced. Quantum cascade initiated. Containment failing. Thomas's face went white. Get out. Everyone out now. As they dragged me toward the exit, I caught one last glimpse of the vault. The quantum key was dissolving, its encrypted data spreading through the system like a virus. I smiled. Sometimes the best way to protect information isn't to hide it. It's to let it free. They say time moves differently during quantum events. As we raced from the disintegrating lab, I felt that theory in action. Everything simultaneously too fast and too slow. Reality bending around the cascade of unleashed quantum energy. Thomas's security team practically threw me into a waiting van, my brother close behind, shouting into his phone. Shut it down. I don't care how. Just contain it. But he didn't understand. None of them did. The quantum key wasn't just decrypting files. It was broadcasting them. Every quantum processor in the lab was now a transmitter, sending packets of data through the quantum network that Morrison Technologies had spent 2 decades building. My father's stolen secrets were about to come home. You idiot. Thomas grabbed my shirt. Do you have any idea what you've done? Actually, I managed despite my bound hands. I do, which is more than I can say for you. An explosion rocked the van, not from the lab, but from Thomas's phone. Every device connected to Morrison Technologies was activating quantum processors worldwide responding to the cascade. Sir, the driver called back. We're getting reports. The whole network is compromised. Everything's going public. Thomas's face went from angry to terrified. Take us to the office. Now, I closed my eyes, feeling the weight of Dad's watch in my pocket. The time frozen on its face, 3:47, wasn't just a reference to my paper. It was a countdown. 3 companies had created the original quantum technology. 4 inventors had died in suspicious accidents. $7 billion had been stolen along with their research. Now everyone would know. The Morrison Technologies building was chaos when we arrived. Emergency alarms blared as employees rushed out, clutching phones and tablets that displayed fragments of the truth. 20 years of corporate theft and murder, spreading through every connected device. Get him to my office, Thomas ordered as we emerged from the van, and find Elizabeth. They dragged me through the lobby, past shell-shocked security guards and weeping executives. In the elevator, Thomas's phone kept buzzing with increasingly frantic messages. Stock trading suspended. Board of Directors emergency meeting. FBI en route. My brother was coming apart, his perfect corporate mask cracking. This isn't happening. This can't be happening. Dad knew it would, I said quietly. That's why he left me the watch. The elevator opened onto the executive floor. Elizabeth was waiting, her face ashen. The quantum network, she said without preamble. It's not just revealing Project Echo. It's revealing everything. Thomas shoved me into his office, closing the door on the chaos outside. What do you mean? Everything. All of it. Elizabeth was practically screaming now. Every stolen patent, every bribed official, every covered-up death. It's all coming out. I sat in one of the visitor chairs, oddly calm. Dad's final failsafe. He knew someday someone would find the truth. He made sure when it happened, nothing could be hidden. You planned this, Thomas accused. You and Dad, you've destroyed us. No, I corrected. You destroyed yourselves. I'm just turning on the lights. Elizabeth's tablet chimed, another alert. Thomas, the FBI is in the lobby with arrest warrants. My brother moved to his desk, pulling out a gun. Elizabeth gasped. Thomas, no. Shut up. He aimed the weapon at me. You can still fix this. Tell them you hacked the system, planted false evidence. Play the disgruntled failure one last time. I looked at the gun, then at my siblings, the golden children who had everything handed to them, who helped hide our father's crimes while mocking my choices. No, I said simply. The office door burst open. FBI agents poured in, weapons drawn. Thomas's gun clattered to the floor as they took him down. Thomas Morrison, Elizabeth Morrison, the lead agent announced, you're under arrest for conspiracy, corporate espionage, and accessory to murder. As they led my siblings away, another agent helped me up, cutting the zip ties. Dr. Morrison, I'm Agent Chen. We've been investigating Morrison Technologies for years, but could never crack the quantum encryption until today. I rubbed my wrists. The encryption was designed to protect their secrets, but protection isn't always about hiding things. She nodded, understanding. Sometimes it's about revealing them at the right time. Your father's final message? Something like that. The next few weeks were a blur of federal investigations, corporate dissolution, and media frenzy. The truth about Project Echo destroyed Morrison Technologies, but something better emerged from the ruins. The original quantum technology was returned to its rightful owners, or their descendants. The billions stolen were repaid, and I found myself working with the surviving inventors, helping rebuild what my father had tried to bury. Thomas and Elizabeth went to prison, along with dozens of executives who had helped hide the truth. I visited them once, bringing Dad's watch. He left it to me because he knew I'd understand. I explained, showing them the quantum key hidden in its mechanism. Not just the technology, but the responsibility that comes with it. He betrayed us, Thomas said bitterly. His own children. No, I corrected. He gave us a chance to choose. You chose power. I chose truth. 1 year later, I stood in a new laboratory, bright, open, legitimate. The quantum technology that had been stolen was now being used as it was originally intended, to help people, to advance science, to make the world better. On my wrist, Dad's watch kept its frozen time. I'd had it repaired, but left the hands at 3:47, a reminder that some moments in time should be preserved. Not to hide secrets, but to reveal them when they're ready to be found. The security guard nodded as I badged into the lab. Morning, Dr. Morrison. I smiled. Good morning. Because that's who I was now. Not the family failure, not the broken Morrison, but simply a scientist trying to do what's right. Behind me, the quantum processors hummed with potential, their energy no longer constrained by theft and secrecy. free to change the world, just as their original inventors had intended. My phone buzzed. A message from Agent Chen. New quantum patent approved. Congratulations. I touched Dad's watch gently. He had built an empire on stolen dreams, then ensured its destruction would set things right. His final gift wasn't the watch, or the quantum key, or even the truth about Project Echo. It was the chance to be better than he was. And that was worth more than any corporate secret.
The executive conference room at Vertex Pharmaceuticals felt sterile and cold, much like the attitudes of the board members seated around the polished mahogany table. Richard Harrison, our CEO, stood at the head of the room, his expensive suit matching his polished corporate demeanor. The quarterly financial projections glowed on a screen behind him, numbers that apparently mattered more than saving lives. My name is Dr. Emily Chen, and this is the story of how my failed cancer research project became the biggest breakthrough in oncology treatment, just not in the way my corporate overlords expected. The numbers are clear, Richard announced, barely glancing at my research data. Project Phoenix has consumed $50 million over 3 years with no marketable results. The board has voted to terminate the research and sell the patents to recoup our investment. I kept my expression neutral, making notes on my tablet. Notes that would prove very interesting to the FDA review panel on Thursday. Let's be honest, Marcus Williams, our CFO, added with a condescending smile. Targeted gene therapy is a pipe dream. The market wants traditional treatments, chemotherapy, radiation, surgical options, things we can sell now. What they didn't know, what none of them had bothered to understand, was that Project Phoenix wasn't just another cancer treatment. It was a completely new approach to fighting the disease, one that could transform patient outcomes while minimizing side effects. I thought back to 5 years ago when I'd left my position at the National Cancer Institute to join Vertex. They promised complete research freedom, substantial funding, and a commitment to breakthrough science. For the first 2 years, they kept that promise. The shareholders expect returns, Richard continued, not endless research with no clear monetization strategy. I made another note, 10:30 a.m. CEO prioritizes short-term profits over phase I trial data showing 94% efficacy rate in treatment-resistant cases. The irony was almost painful. While they saw failed research, I developed something revolutionary, a targeted therapy that could identify and neutralize cancer cells while leaving healthy tissue untouched. The preliminary results had been so promising that the FDA had fast-tracked our trials. We've already arranged to transfer your research data to our primary oncology division, Richard added. They'll evaluate if any components can be salvaged for traditional drug development. I thought about the 3 encrypted drives in my office containing the real Project Phoenix data. The version they had was comprehensive but incomplete, missing the key breakthroughs that had occurred in the past 6 months. Of course, I said quietly, I'll have everything organized by end of day. What Richard didn't know was that 6 months ago, I'd received a classified communication from my former colleague at the NCI, Dr. James Martinez. The government had been closely monitoring our trials, particularly the unprecedented success rates in cases that have failed all other treatments. The board members were already standing, considering the matter closed. They had merger meetings to attend, stock prices to monitor, profit margins to analyze. One question, I said, causing Richard to pause at the door. Have you reviewed the FDA's latest assessment of our phase I trials? His face flickered with uncertainty. Those results aren't due until next week. Actually, I smiled. They're announcing them Thursday. Back in my lab, I began methodically preparing for the announcement. The real Project Phoenix data was backed up securely, along with years of research notes, trial results, and patient recovery data. Results that showed not just tumor reduction, but complete remission in cases that traditional medicine had abandoned as hopeless. My phone buzzed. A message from Dr. Martinez. FDA panel prepared for Thursday. They've never seen numbers like these. You've done it, Emily. Sarah from HR stopped by, concern evident on her face. Dr. Chen, I heard about the project termination. If you need help with placement at another company. Thanks, Sarah, I said, carefully backing up my files. But I have a feeling everything will sort itself out. As I worked late into the evening, I thought about my mother, who had lost her battle with cancer 10 years ago, about how traditional treatments had ravaged her body while failing to save her life. She had been my inspiration for Project Phoenix, the drive to find a better way, a treatment that didn't feel worse than the disease itself. Thursday would change everything, because while Richard and the board were focused on quarterly profits, I've been focused on something far more important: saving lives. And in less than 48 hours, they would learn exactly what they'd just thrown away. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't in fighting back. It's in letting people's own short-sightedness reveal their catastrophic mistake. Thursday was going to be very interesting indeed. The FDA's main conference center was packed Thursday morning, filled with medical reporters, pharmaceutical executives, and oncology specialists from around the world. Through the glass doors, I spotted Richard and several Vertex board members arriving, their usual corporate confidence wavering as they noticed the unprecedented media presence. "Dr. Chen," Richard called out, trying to maintain his authority. "What is the meaning of this? Why wasn't Vertex informed of this presentation?" "FDA protocols," I replied calmly, setting up my presentation materials. "The results were embargoed until today." Dr. Elena Martinez, the FDA's chief of oncology research, called the room to order. "Ladies and gentlemen, we're here to announce what may be the most significant breakthrough in cancer treatment in the past 50 years. Richard's face paled as Dr. Martinez continued. "Project Phoenix, developed by Dr. Emily Chen, has shown unprecedented success in treating advanced stage cancers that have proved resistant to all other therapies." For the next hour, I presented the true results of my research, not just the standard trial data, but the groundbreaking mechanisms that made Phoenix different from every other treatment. Traditional cancer therapies, I explained, displaying molecular imaging, are like using a sledgehammer to kill a fly. They damage healthy cells along with cancerous ones. But Phoenix uses targeted genetic markers to identify and neutralize only cancer cells. The room fell silent as they watched videos of the treatment in action. Cancer cells literally dissolving while healthy tissue remained untouched. "This is impossible," Marcus Williams protested. "Our review showed minimal efficacy." "You reviewed preliminary data," I corrected, displaying the complete trial results. "These are the full phase aita results. 94% complete remission in treatment-resistant cases. 0 significant side effects. Average treatment time, 3 weeks. Dr. Martinez stepped forward with more data. "We've verified these results across multiple independent trials. The implications are revolutionary. This could make traditional chemotherapy obsolete." More importantly, Dr. James Martinez added, "The treatment is simple to administer and could be produced at a fraction of the cost of current therapies." I clicked to my next slide, patient testimonials. Sarah Mitchell, stage 4 pancreatic cancer, given 3 months to live. Complete remission after 2 weeks of Phoenix treatment. Robert Chen, no relation, advanced lymphoma that had resisted 3 rounds of traditional chemotherapy. Cancer-free in 18 days. Richard stood up, his business instincts finally kicking in. "As CEO of Vertex Pharmaceuticals, I'm proud to announce that way." "Actually," I interrupted, "Project Phoenix is now under the control of the National Cancer Institute. I transferred the patents yesterday as per my original research agreement with them." The color drained from Richard's face as Dr. Martinez distributed documents to the board members. Dr. Chen's contract with Vertex specifically excluded intellectual property developed using her proprietary methods. The core technology behind Phoenix was developed during her time at NCI. "The company's resources," Richard began, "were used to test and refine an existing system," Dr. Martinez finished. "A system that will now be developed as a public resource, not a private profit center." I pulled up my final slide, the incorporation papers for the Phoenix Foundation, a non-profit research organization dedicated to making the treatment accessible worldwide. "The government has approved a $2 billion grant for global implementation," I announced. "The foundation will ensure that this treatment reaches everyone who needs it, not just those who can afford premium drug prices." The room erupted in applause. Medical reporters were already broadcasting live updates. Oncologists were calling their hospitals to join the implementation program. "You planned this," Richard accused, his voice tight with anger. "No," I corrected. "I plan to save lives. You're the ones who plan to profit from human suffering." The next few months transformed the landscape of cancer treatment. Phoenix centers opened across the country, then worldwide. The success rates continued to exceed all expectations. Vertex Pharmaceuticals faced its own reckoning. Their stock plunged when news broke that they terminated the most significant cancer breakthrough in decades. Richard and several board members were forced to resign when shareholders learned they valued quarterly profits over saving lives. 1 year later, I stood in the research center of the Phoenix Foundation, watching as new patients received treatment. The walls were covered with photos of survivors, people who had been given death sentences by traditional medicine, now living full, healthy lives. "Dr. Chen," a voice called. I turned to see Sarah Mitchell, one of our first trial patients, now volunteering at the center. "Another successful treatment today. Stage 4 lung cancer, complete remission in 16 days. Sometimes, late at night in my lab, I think about that final board meeting at Vertex, about Richard's dismissal of research he couldn't understand, about how they'd all prioritize profit over the potential to save millions of lives. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't about getting even. It's about achieving something so significant that it makes their greed look small and pathetic in comparison." The Phoenix treatment continues to evolve, becoming even more effective. We're not just treating cancer anymore, we're changing how the world thinks about the disease. It's no longer a death sentence, but a treatable condition. And every time I see Richard at medical conferences, carefully avoiding eye contact, I think about choices and consequences. About how his rush to judge something he didn't understand cost his company billions and their place in medical history. Because in the end, true breakthrough isn't about quarterly profits or stock prices. It's about having the vision to see beyond immediate returns, the patience to build something revolutionary, and the integrity to ensure it helps as many people as possible. My mother would have been proud, not just of the treatment that could have saved her life, but of the choice to make it accessible to everyone who needs it. Because sometimes the greatest victory isn't in proving others wrong. It's in proving that humanity can still triumph over greed. And that's a cure worth more than all the pharmaceutical profits in the world.